My grandmother's funeral had ended 3 days ago. The red brick mansion in the Boston suburbs, where she had lived for more than half a century, still carried the scent of lilies and half-burned candles from the memorial. I, Dahlia Moore, 28 years old, stood silently in her vast library, the room filled with old leather-bound books and warm memories I had always considered my safe place. I had not yet recovered from the loss when my father's voice, Richard Moore, rang out behind me, so cold it made the air even heavier. "Dahlia, stop deluding yourself," he said, face flushed, voice hissing through his teeth. "You were never my real daughter. Only those who carry more blood deserve the family fortune." I froze. My heart felt like it was being crushed. My trembling hand rested on the walnut desk where my grandmother had written her final letters. "Dad, what are you saying?" My voice was so faint it barely escaped my throat. He glared at me, eyes burning with hatred, as if tearing apart what little faith I had left. "Don't play innocent. Your mother's secret is ready to be revealed. I've already asked a lawyer to verify it, and when it's proven you have no more blood, you'll be left with nothing. Margaret may have loved you, but the law doesn't care about feelings." I took a deep breath, forcing my knees not to buckle. "So you're saying, all these years I was just an outsider in my own family?" "That's right." He smirked with arrogance. "You can attend the will reading next week if you must, but don't expect a dime. I've already discussed with Peter Lawrence. He'll help me challenge any provision with your name on it." Peter Lawrence, our family lawyer and my father's close friend for more than 20 years. My heart sank. If they truly worked together to erase me, what chance did I have? I sank into the armchair by the desk where my grandmother once signed important contracts and read the morning paper. My fingers brushed over the polished surface, searching for a trace of her warmth. Her final words echoed in my mind: "Trust your instincts, Dahlia. Not everything is as it seems." Back then I thought she was comforting me. Now I realized she had foreseen this storm. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom flashed across the screen. "We need to talk tonight, just the two of us. About your father. There are things you must know." A chill spread through my whole body. If my father wasn't my biological father, then who was? Why had this secret been hidden for nearly 3 decades? And why surface now, right after Margaret's passing, tied to the division of her enormous estate? I looked up at the large portrait on the wall, my grandmother's steady eyes, her gentle face radiating strength. I whispered, almost praying, "Grandma, what should I do?" My father was still standing there, his eyes sharp as blades. "Dahlia, prepare yourself. This family doesn't tolerate imposters. You will get nothing." I clenched my fists, numbness spreading down my arms. Inside me, pain ignited with anger. For years I had lived chasing his approval, the man who never gave me a hug or a single word of praise. Now I understood. His coldness came from a deep-seated resentment. I stood up, meeting his eyes. "If you insist that only those with more blood deserve anything, then keep your promise. Don't forget, you just said it yourself." He chuckled dryly, lifting his chin with the same arrogance I had seen my whole childhood. "I will. I'll protect this legacy from outsiders." As he turned and walked out of the library, his cold figure swallowed by the fading afternoon light through the windows, I knew one truth. The real battle of my life had just begun. That evening I went to a small cafe tucked away on a quiet street in Cambridge, where my mother often read on weekends. The atmosphere there was nothing like the heavy air of my grandmother's mansion. Warm, simple, and peaceful. My mother, Caroline, sat in the familiar corner, clutching a ceramic cup she hadn't even touched. Her face looked weary, her sandy blonde hair pulled back but with stray strands framing her face. I had never seen her so fragile. "Dahlia," she whispered as I sat across from her. "Your father, he had no right to speak to you that way. But the truth is, he isn't your biological father." My heart twisted painfully. Hearing it directly from her lips shattered every lingering doubt. "Then who really is my father?" I asked, voice trembling. Tears filled her eyes. She twisted her old wedding ring nervously, then drew a deep breath. "It's Samuel, Richard's younger brother." I went numb. Samuel Moore, my uncle, nearly estranged from the family, a medical researcher living in San Francisco, rarely coming home. My faint memories were of him bringing small gifts, speaking kindly, smiling warmly. Never once had I imagined he could be my father. Mom continued, her voice breaking. Before I married Richard, Samuel and I were in love. We were young, reckless but true. When Samuel was awarded a prestigious medical research fellowship in California, we decided to endure the distance, believing we could make it. But the distance killed our love. During those lonely days, Richard was always there, caring, attentive. I was weak and a mistake happened. When I found out I was pregnant, I was certain the baby was Samuel's, because the timing meant only Samuel could have been your father. I bit my lip to hold back a sob. Every childhood memory suddenly shifted meaning. Richard's cold stares, his cutting words that I was not strong enough, the distance that never closed, all of it had come from a hidden truth. And Samuel? I asked, my voice hoarse. Did he know? Mom shook her head. No. When he returned after a few years, he had already started a family. I couldn't bring myself to disrupt his life. So everything stayed buried, a secret too heavy to speak of. I stared in silence at the cup of coffee gone cold. A part of me wanted to scream, to blame her for staying silent nearly 30 years. But looking at her gaunt face, I only saw a woman who had carried guilt her whole life. So what is Richard using this for now? I asked. Her eyes darkened. He's afraid Margaret left you a significant share of the estate. He wants to destroy your credibility, turn you into an outsider, and erase you completely from the will. He knows if the truth comes out, your claim could be stronger than anyone's because you are Margaret's true granddaughter. Samuel is her son, Dahlia. That bloodline cannot be denied. I went still. A cruel irony. Richard thought he could destroy me with the truth, but that very truth could make me stronger. What do I do now? I whispered. Mom clasped my hands tightly. You need the truth confirmed. Samuel is the only one who can help. Meet him before the will reading. Don't give Richard more time to scheme. I nodded, trembling yet determined. My life had been a picture painted wrong, and now I had to redraw it myself. As I left the cafe, Boston's lights flickered on, casting the streets in shifting paths. I knew the road ahead would be thorny. But deep inside, a new strength stirred awake. Richard Moore had spent his whole life making me feel like an outsider. He had no idea his own cruel words had just handed me the key to the family's deepest secret. And this time I would not stay silent. The next morning I drove west along Interstate 90, my chest heavy. I had called Uncle Samuel the night before, telling him only that there was urgent family business. He hadn't pressed for details, just quietly told me to come to his apartment in San Francisco. The nearly 6-hour flight left me sleepless, my mind circling the same unanswered questions. When I knocked on the 10th floor apartment door, Samuel opened it, his face a mix of surprise and worry. At 56, he was still striking, with neatly cut salt and pepper hair and warm brown eyes that mirrored my own childhood memories. Dahlia, you look troubled. What's going on? He asked, his voice slightly unsteady. I sat down in the fabric armchair of a living room cluttered with research papers and medical journals. Uncle Samuel, please hear me out. I've just learned something and it could change everything. I told him everything. Richard's venomous words, my mother's tearful confession, and the truth that Samuel might be my real father. His face drained of color, his hands clenched on his knees. Caroline, she never told me, he murmured, eyes distant. I always felt some connection to you, but never dared think further. If what she said is true, then everything is different now. I met his gaze firmly. We need the truth. Only a DNA test can prove it. Samuel was silent for a moment, then nodded resolutely. I agree. If you are truly my daughter, we need to know, before Richard hurts you any further. The next day we went to a well-known private lab in downtown San Francisco. They promised results within 72 hours for a steep fee, but Samuel didn't hesitate. When the technician drew our blood, my body trembled. Each drop leaving me felt like it carried both my fear and my hope. While waiting for the results, I sought more clues about Margaret's will. I arranged a meeting with her personal lawyer, Mr. Thomas Green, a man in his 60s who had worked with her for nearly 3 decades. His office sat on a quiet street by the bay, lined with dark wooden filing cabinets. Dahlia, I'm sorry, Mr. Green said gently, I cannot disclose details before the official reading. But I can assure you Margaret was very clear when drafting her final will. She mentioned you many times. Did she know about my parentage? I asked, my voice urgent. His eyes flickered with hesitation. I cannot comment directly. But one thing is certain. Margaret always saw through lies to the truth. I understood the implication. My grandmother must have known or at least suspected the truth about my identity. That evening, I received an official letter from the office of Attorney Peter Lawrence, Richard's longtime friend. Its content made me shudder. He had filed a motion asking the court to delay the will reading, citing a dispute over the heir's bloodline. He also requested a private meeting hinting at a settlement to avoid legal complications. The next morning I went to Lawrence's office, a lavish space with high ceilings and polished oak. He greeted me with a polite yet cold smile. Dahlia, Richard is truly concerned about the stability of the family trust. He believes the best option for you is to step away quietly. I frowned. What do you mean? He slid a stack of papers toward me. This is the agreement. You will give up all inheritance rights and in return, Richard is prepared to pay you $200,000. Clean, safe, no scandal. I choked back my anger. You think I would sell my dignity that cheaply? Lawrence's smile faded. If you persist, every secret will be dragged into the open. Are you sure you want the whole city to know you're not Richard's legal daughter? Sometimes the truth doesn't serve your life well, Dahlia. I stood, my voice sharp. The truth is the only thing I need. As for this offer, send it back to Richard, along with the message that I will not back down. Leaving the office, I felt both furious and anxious. Richard wasn't just trying to strip me of my rights, he was willing to smear my reputation to get what he wanted. But I was about to hold the strongest weapon: DNA results. 3 days later, an email from the lab appeared on my phone screen. My hands trembled as I opened it. The conclusion was clear. Probability of paternity, 99.9999%. My eyes blurred with tears. Just as my mother and I had believed, Samuel was my biological father. There was no denying it. I immediately called him. His voice cracked. Dahlia, I've missed too many years. But now at least we have the truth. That truth was my only shield against Richard's schemes. But I knew the battle had only begun. The will reading would be the place where every secret would surface, and I had to be ready to face it all. That night, just as I was about to rest after a long day, my phone rang. The name, Samuel, appeared on the screen. His voice was hoarse, heavy with restraint. Dahlia, I just learned something that could change everything. I sat up straight. What is it, Uncle? He paused briefly, then spoke slowly. Richard was never more blood. He was adopted as an infant. The room spun around me. I gripped the chair arm to keep from collapsing. What are you saying? Why am I only hearing this now? Samuel sighed, his voice tight. Our parents, your grandparents, after years of miscarriages, adopted Richard to fill the void. A year later, Mother unexpectedly conceived and gave birth to me. Only a handful of close people knew this secret, including Margaret. She kept it for decades so Richard wouldn't feel lesser. But the truth is, he never carried more blood. I went numb. Richard's words in the library echoed in my head. Only those with more blood deserve the family fortune. So he had dug his own grave. Does Richard know this? I asked. Samuel answered quickly, I don't believe so. Our parents took the secret to their graves. But Margaret knew. I just contacted an old nurse who worked with them. She confirmed she saw the adoption papers. I shivered. The pieces clicked together. Richard's inexplicable coldness, his obsession with pure lineage, his rage when I was named in the will. He was fighting to protect something he had no rightful claim to in the first place. So, I murmured, by the very bloodline rule he used to cast me out, he's the real outsider. Samuel was silent for a few seconds, then said firmly, exactly. If Richard insists on applying the bloodline condition, he disqualifies himself. This could topple everything he's built. I closed my eyes, feeling a strange sense of justice emerging. But fear came with it. Do we have proof? He'll never admit it. I'm tracking down the original records in an old hospital archive in New York. That nurse promised to help. Once we have those documents, nothing can refute it. Before I could reply, my phone buzzed with a text alert. It was from an unknown number. Dahlia, stop now if you want to stay safe. Family business should not be exposed. I showed the screen to Samuel. His jaw tightened. Richard No one else would resort to threats like this. I trembled but then steadied myself. I'm not afraid. He cast me out long ago. Now it's time for the truth to speak. 3 days later, Samuel came to me with a worn folder. The pages were yellowed, the signatures faded, but clear. Richard had been adopted in 1965 at a private medical facility. This is the key, Samuel said, his eyes stern. But Dahlia, you must prepare yourself. When this secret is revealed, it won't just destroy Richard. It will shake the entire family. I took a deep breath. I'm ready. He used the truth to try to destroy me. Now I'm only returning exactly what he sowed. That afternoon, I received another unexpected call from Attorney Green, the one who had worked with Margaret. His voice was low and heavy. Dahlia, I must warn you. Peter Lawrence has filed an emergency petition to indefinitely delay the will reading, claiming the bloodline must be verified. They want to stall for time to find a way to remove you. I gripped the phone, blood rushing to my face. What do you think I should do? Green replied, stand firm. The reading will still happen, but it will be more intense than anyone expects. Prepare for every outcome. Remember, Margaret never intended to leave you alone in this. When I hung up, staring at the sunset stretching across the window, a chilling truth struck my heart. The coming battle was no longer just about inheritance. It was a fight to expose the true roots of the Moore family, a root built on deception that Richard fought so hard to conceal. And this time, the truth about his own origins would be the decisive blow. The day of the will reading arrived, and the Boston sky was unusually clear. Margaret's red brick mansion glowed in the autumn sunlight, but inside the air was thick with tension. Every family member was present in the grand living room, where a long wooden table had been set for the attorney to announce her final wishes. I sat beside my mother, my hands icy cold. Samuel sat opposite me, his gaze unwavering. At the head of the table, Peter Lawrence, Richard's trusted lawyer, displayed an air of authority, a thick folder spread before him. Richard sat at his side, his face triumphant, as if victory was already his. Before we begin, Richard's booming voice filled the room, I want to raise a matter. This person, he pointed straight at me, is not my biological daughter. Under the requirements of the Moore Trust, only blood descendants are eligible heirs. I have proof. He threw a folder onto the table. Peter quickly opened it and passed it around. DNA test results concluding I was not Richard's biological child. My heart pounded, but I had prepared for this moment. I stood staring directly at Richard. How did you even get my DNA? I never consented. Richard smirked, answering casually, from the glass you drank from at dinner last week. Simple. A wave of outrage rippled through the room, but Peter cut in quickly. The method of collection is irrelevant. Science has proven it. Dahlia is not Richard's biological daughter. She is ineligible. I drew a deep breath, then pulled another folder from my bag. If he wants to talk about the truth, then I also have proof. These are the DNA results between me and Samuel Moore. The room fell silent. I placed the file before them. Conclusion. Probability of paternity 99.9999%. I am Samuel's biological daughter, and the only true granddaughter of Margaret. The room erupted in shouts. Richard's face turned pale as he glared at my mother with fury, but she lifted her chin, refusing to look away. Peter tried to regain control. This changes nothing. The Moore Trust recognizes only Richard's legal heirs, not Samuel's. Samuel rose, his voice deep and commanding. Actually, there is something far more important. Richard, you were never part of the Moore bloodline. Everyone turned to Samuel. He opened his leather briefcase and pulled out the yellowed file. These are the adoption papers for Richard, dated 1965, kept by St. Joseph Hospital. He was not my parents' biological child. He was adopted. The room exploded. Richard leapt to his feet, slamming the table. Lies. This is slander. Samuel calmly placed another envelope on the table. And here is a statement from a witness, a nurse who personally handled the adoption, along with genetic results comparing Richard and me, proving we share no blood relation. I saw Richard's face go ghostly white, his eyes wide with panic. He stammered, unable to form words. Just then the doors to the room swung open. A thin but dignified figure entered, leaning on a blackwood cane. It was attorney Thomas Green, once Margaret's personal advisor. "I apologize for being late, Mr. Green's deep voice rang out, his sharp eyes fixed on Peter Lawrence. "But I felt I had to be here to ensure Margaret's wishes are carried out properly." The room shifted uneasily. Richard stepped back, his face draining of color, while Peter stared down at the floor. Green sat, opening his worn leather case. "Margaret left a letter instructing me to reveal it only if there was a dispute about bloodlines. This is her final wish." He pulled out an envelope sealed with red wax, carefully broke it open and began to read. His voice rang clear. "To my beloved family. If you are hearing this letter, then the secret has been revealed. I have always known Richard was adopted, and I also knew Dahlia was Samuel's daughter. I stayed silent all these years not because I doubted you, but because I wanted to protect the family's unity. But Richard's selfishness and cruelty have proven he is unworthy of the Moore name. Since he invoked bloodline as the condition to disinherit his niece, then by that very condition he disinherits himself." Everyone held their breath as Green continued. "Therefore all personal assets under my control, including the mansion, investments and the majority of company shares, shall pass to Samuel and his daughter, Dahlia. The Moore Trust, which requires bloodline, shall recognize only those of true descent, namely Samuel and Dahlia. Richard, I once treated you as a son, but you betrayed my trust. Your inheritance ends this very moment." The room was silent, broken only by the faint rustle of papers in the lawyer's hands. Richard roared, "No. This is a scheme. You've trapped me." But no one believed him anymore. Peter Lawrence hung his head, knowing his career was destroyed as Green revealed he had deliberately concealed the adoption records. I turned to Richard, repeating his own words, "Only those with more blood are worthy. Do you want to take that promise back now?" Richard's face twisted in despair. He bolted from the room, leaving behind a family collapsing under the weight of his lies. I gripped Samuel's hand. In his eyes I saw pain but also pride. For the first time in my life I truly felt the presence of a father. The heavy doors of the living room slammed shut after Richard's exit, leaving a stunned silence. My relatives sat frozen, still unable to process the earthquake that had just struck. Inside Margaret's familiar mansion, I felt the air clear, the lies stripped away, leaving only raw truth. Attorney Thomas Green closed the stack of papers, his voice low but firm. "Margaret's intentions are clear. No one can change them." He cast a glance at Peter Lawrence, who sat trembling, sweat dripping down his forehead. "As a lawyer, you concealed the truth about Richard's origins. That is not only a breach of ethics but could bring legal consequences." Peter shook, fumbling for excuses, but his words stumbled. No one listened. I saw irretrievable collapse in his eyes. The man who once stood at the peak of power was now only a broken shadow. At the corner of the table, my two half-brothers, Mark and Andrew, Richard's biological sons, sat in silence. Mark, usually stern, spoke first. "Dahlia, I never knew. But no matter what, you're still our sister. Blood doesn't matter as much as truth and family." Andrew nodded, his eyes red. "I'm sorry for all the times we let Father mistreat you. If we had known sooner, maybe things would have been different." Their words blurred my vision with tears. I had never expected acknowledgement from them, but in that moment, their sincerity lifted the weight of loneliness from my heart. My mother, Caroline, stepped forward, her trembling hand resting on my shoulder. "Dahlia, I'm sorry for hiding the truth. I thought silence would protect you, but in the end, it only hurt you more." I took her hand and squeezed gently. "I understand now, Mom. I don't blame you anymore. If I were in your place, maybe I would have chosen the same." Samuel, my father, stood beside me then, his eyes glowing with emotion. He whispered, "All these years I know your father missed too much. But if you'll allow me, I want to start over. I want to be the father you've always deserved, even if it's late." I looked into the eyes that mirrored mine, finding the warmth I had longed for all my life. "I want that too, Dad." No grand words were needed. That moment itself was a reconciliation, late but complete. After the will reading, Richard vanished from Boston. Rumor had it he sold off a few personal assets in haste and fled the state in a rage. Wherever he went, he could not erase the truth. The entire family and the world now knew he was nothing but an outsider in the very family he had boasted of belonging to. Peter Lawrence faced investigation by the Bar Association. His decades-long reputation collapsed overnight. I heard many clients canceled their contracts, leaving him in ruin. As for me, instead of feeling satisfied with victory, I felt relieved. For the first time, I was no longer haunted by the need to prove my worth to Richard. I already had a real family right here. My mother, my father Samuel, and even my 2 brothers now reaching out to accept me. One afternoon, I sat in my grandmother's library, the very room where the storm had begun. Sunlight filtered through the windows, casting golden light across the heavy bookshelves. I gently touched the chair where she once sat, my heart swelling with gratitude. She had arranged everything so I didn't need to seek revenge, only let the truth reveal itself. I whispered, "Grandma, now I understand. The greatest inheritance you left me wasn't money but truth and family." That same day, Samuel, my mother, and I began planning for the future. We decided to use part of the inheritance to establish a scholarship fund in Margaret's name, dedicated to students pursuing history and medicine, 2 fields both my father and I cherished. Mark and Andrew joined us even though they had inherited little. "This is the only way to restore the Moore family's honor," Mark said. I nodded. For the first time, I felt we were truly a family. Late at night, I sat writing down every detail of the events. That battle could be told as a tragedy, but to me it was rebirth. I was no longer the girl forever chasing Richard's scornful gaze. I was Dahlia Moore, the daughter of Samuel, the biological granddaughter of Margaret, and most importantly, a woman who had discovered her true worth. I closed my journal and smiled. Outside the window, Boston's sky glittered with stars. I knew the road ahead would not be easy, but I would walk it with unshakable faith. Once the truth is revealed, it becomes the greatest strength. In real life, my story, Dahlia's story, reminds us that no lie lasts forever. Power, wealth, or status may blind people, but the truth will always come to light. The most precious inheritance isn't money or grand mansions, but family, trust, and compassion. Because when all the superficial things are gone, only true family and honesty remain as the enduring legacy, strong enough to carry us forward with faith and freedom. What do you think about the choices and fates of each character in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel to hear more emotional stories and profound lessons about family.